All right, so our next presenters here are with a luxury hotel in Puerto Rico on the west side of the island of Puerto Rico. I'm going to bring them on stage now. And if you attended my first OZ Pitch Day in November of last year, these two gentlemen spoke about this investment. So this may be review for you, but I think they've got probably a couple of updates on there. So I'm going to bring up Adrian Beales and Joshua Ziegelbaum up on the stage now.
All right, great. I'll kick us off. So we're really happy to be here for this next pitch day, March of 2021. Adrian and I are going to be presenting our luxury hotel investment opportunity in Puerto Rico. We're also going to be discussing the current landscape on the island and some of our past performance, of course. So let's get right to it. So my name is Josh Ziegelbaum, Vice President of Business Development. I'm currently based in South Florida, where I've been for the last several years. I'm originally from the Northeast. My background's in private banking and wealth management, and I'm happy to be here with Adrian. Adrian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Josh. As Josh mentioned, my name is Adrian Beales. I'm originally from Australia, but I've been living and working in Puerto Rico and Colombia and Latin America for the last 3.5 years with Lifeafar Capital. So a little bit about the contents, table of contents, what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are. We're going to talk about Puerto Rico and why we feel that Puerto Rico is the best opportunity zone in the United States and why it's perfectly positioned for future prosperity. We're going to talk about our latest offering and the impact that can have on the local community. And then we're going to take Q&A at the end.
So Lifeafar Capital, who are we? Well, we're a boutique private equity and asset management firm. We focus on hotel and mixed-use properties, luxury bespoke concepts, such as those that you see on the right here. We do opportunistic value-add transactions in the $10 to $50 million range. And the markets we're in are Puerto Rico and Latin America. Our leadership team brings decades of combined experience from a variety of different backgrounds. I won't get into each and every one of them here with respect to the time in the presentation, but it's important to note that our individuals on the leadership team are personally invested in Lifeafar's projects. And what we have here on the screen is an example of our first project in Puerto Rico. It's a single asset opportunity zone fund located in the old city of San Juan. It'll be a 60-room boutique hotel with a 6,000 square foot restaurant on the rooftop and a 6,000 square foot commercial space on the bottom level there. It was a $21 million all-in development. And what's interesting about it is that it's eligible for tourism tax credits and local incentives, which can be stacked on top of any opportunity zone benefit, which we'll get to momentarily here.
Thanks, Josh. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information on Puerto Rico. I know we've got people on the call today who have been to Puerto Rico, who know Puerto Rico really well, but we have also a lot of people who probably have never been to Puerto Rico. So I'll give a high level, and then I want to tell you about the really good news coming out of Puerto Rico recently. So really high level, US territory, obviously it means for investors and travelers that it's US federal law, there's no currency risk. Puerto Rico has a vibrant and distinct and unique culture. Interestingly, they've been a powerhouse in the past and currently for pharmaceutical and medical manufacturing, medical device manufacturing, and they actually produce more pharmaceuticals and medical devices than the next biggest two states in the mainland combined. And they actually produce 90% of the world's pacemakers. So interesting fact there. Aerospace is also a very strong industry, but tourism obviously is the space that we play in, and it's a big place that Puerto Rico are making a big play for. So prior to COVID-19, Puerto Rico actually had record tourism growth. Now, traditionally, Puerto Rico has only ever had 4 to 5, maybe up to 7% of their GDP coming from tourism. And they've actually got amazing beaches. You know, they've got the only rainforest in the United States. Resource-wise, they've got the perfect climate, the perfect location for tourism. But due to underinvestment in the past, tourism was never a major industry. But they're making them play for that now. There was also a shortage of hotel rooms prior to COVID-19. We had record numbers of domestic and international travel to the island in 2019. And the New York Times in 2019 ranked Puerto Rico as the #1 place to visit. So I mentioned that the island's making a big play for tourism. One of the ways they're doing that is they're providing additional tax incentives and credits on top of obviously opportunity zone legislation. The one I want to focus on of all these points here is the tourism tax credits. So the 40% tourism tax credit allows for developers and investors to get up to 40% of the development cost back on your project if you're doing a development or a redevelopment of a hotel in this case. So to give you an example, our first project, Plaza Cologne, which Josh mentioned, we received over $11 million of tax credits on that project. And that allows you to take on less debt. It allows you to pay back whatever debt you do take on very quickly. And it allows for the island the opportunity to create jobs for the construction of these projects, ongoing jobs in the tourism space. And of course, they're making the big bet that long term, more and more people will come and visit the island. It is a domestic location as well. They'll come and visit the island. And of course, they'll spend their money on local activities, restaurants, bars, and it'll be a sustainable economic development. So obviously, when we think about Puerto Rico, obviously in the last few years, we've heard a lot of negative news, particularly after Hurricane Maria, and there has been a lot of challenges, but we're hearing a lot of positive news right now coming out of the island. So late last year, Discover Puerto Rico and Airbnb partnered on a domestic tourism promotion program. This is my favorite one, a $10.7 billion investment in the infrastructure grid and the power grid. So this is a major investment that obviously will create jobs. It'll improve the infrastructure of the island for decades to come. And it doesn't just help tourism, it helps everyone who lives and works on the island. So the Biden government came into power recently and they released $6.2 billion of previously withheld funds. And we're also seeing private investment on the island. So $228 million to biotech firms opening up new plants on the island. And this is another good one. Puerto Rico, West Coast, the Aguadilla International Airport, which serves New York and Florida, for example, $135 million airport upgrade was announced late last year. And obviously, we all know that tourism had a really tough time in 2020, particularly with restrictions on borders and travel. But we feel that there's going to be a post-COVID-19 travel boom. We feel there's a lot of pent-up demand. We're not the only ones who feel that. Obviously, Marriott are making a big bet, as we mentioned here in the article, on resorts. We think that business travel may take a little bit longer to recover, but we do believe that luxury travel and experience-based travel will be the first to recover, and we feel our assets are perfectly positioned opening in a year and 2 years' time.
So I'm going to be covering our latest offering, which is a luxury hotel investment on the west coast of Puerto Rico. It'll accompany our first project in San Juan. And what we have here is an iconic asset that we've acquired at distressed pricing. Lifeafar Capital, we have extensive redevelopment and expansion plans in place. When the property was operational in the past, it was actually rated as one of the top 6 hotels in Puerto Rico by Forbes, and it's received numerous awards from Condé Nast Traveler. Some project highlights would be low leverage, 50% loan to value, which is very conservative. An important thing to note is that we conducted an independent analysis with PKF Hotels. They had a look under the hood of our original model, and they advised us on the scope of work for the development, appropriate number of rooms. We've taken their advice into consideration in developing our model. An important one as well would be our co-investment. So we have a 10% equity position in the project alongside of our investors. That ensures that our interests are aligned, of course. If you're an investor and you're looking to get into this, our minimum ticket is $100,000. And when we open the project, which is expected to be in early 2023, we anticipate on commencing dividends on a quarterly basis. Here's some of the key development and operational impact points. As Adrian alluded to before, 200 construction jobs, 100 plus hotel operating jobs, 10,000 guests annually come into the island to visit the project. And as a result, we'll actually be creating 150 indirect jobs. So very strong impact locally, which is something we're passionate about. So what can an investor expect in terms of a financial return? These are our projections for a QOZ investor. We projected a net IRR of 25.7% and a net ROI of 15.3%. This works out to be an equity multiple of 3.4x over a 10-year pro forma. And something important to note here, we're currently in phase 1 of the capital raise, for which we're offering a 5% credit of additional shares to our investors. We're about 70% sold out of phase 1. So if you'd like more information on this after this presentation, feel free to reach out to us. We'll of course provide our contact info, but that's an added buffer here, which could further bolster these returns to the upside. I'm going to pass it to Adrian here. He's going to go over this table, which models out the cash flows of a $100,000 investment at the project level. Adrian?
Thanks, Josh. So we wanted to show this really quickly to show how powerful some of those tourism tax credits are on top of the OZ benefits. So if you look at the returns in years 1, 2, and 3 of operations, we actually see that they're higher than the following 5 years. The reason is those tax credits, if you're successful in achieving them, you get them delivered in tranches, so 3-year tranches, and they're sold for 87 to 91 cents on the dollar. They're used to pay back the debt, but allows you to take a refinance in the 3rd year of operations. So what we're looking at here is, for someone putting in $100,000, a $14,500 return year 1, 17 in year 2, and then $114,000 return in the form of a refinance and dividends in the 3rd year. And then obviously it drops down again to an 8, 9, 10, 11, and a 12% return. And of course the 10-year exit. But it just shows how those tax credits really help bolster the returns of the project, particularly early on. So just in summary, what do we feel we have here? We have a project that's perfectly timed in terms of its opening in Q1 2023 for that return of travel. It's an opportunistic acquisition at distressed pricing. There's additional tax credits and incentives over and above the opportunity zone legislation, high returns and low leverage. There's the phased equity bonus that Josh mentioned before, the ability to refinance, and of course, a positive impact in the form of job creation and dollars in the tourism economy. And we'll take questions.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We got time for one question, and then we're going to move along. But talk about your exit strategy. What's your exit strategy with this particular property? How do you get that capital gain on the back end and able to exclude that from taxation?
Yeah, I suppose, like every opportunity zone fund, we're looking to exit after 10 years. And of course, if there was an amazing opportunity to exit earlier, we would take that if the timing, the cycle of the market was right. But the idea is to wait for that 10 years, stabilize the asset and sell it out on a cap rate basis and look for either a hotel chain or an investment group that invests in hotel funds, REITs, things like that to exit to.
Fantastic. Well, Adrian Beales, Josh Ziegelbaum, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for presenting your luxury hotel property in Puerto Rico. It's a fantastic property. I've actually been there before. I can't disclose it because these guys are operating under an NDA for this property, but it's a fantastic piece of property. If you have questions, please do email them, info@lifeafarcapital.com, or you can visit their website, lifeafarcapital.com. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jimmy.